go.
All right, and welcome to our Librarians of the Citadel Season 7 recap. We're all very excited for the Season 8 premiere on Sunday night, so we wanted to go over the highlights of Season 7 with you all. So, just to get it going, does anybody remember their favorite moments or moments that stood out from them from last season?
Oh, the loot train episode where you finally get to see the Dothraki stand on their horses and Dany flying her dragons.
Yeah.
And it's Team Dany. I know that you could probably talk about the Night King flying Viserion, but we don't want the Night King to win. So.
What about you, Noelle? Any scenes or moments that stand out?
Well, I think what will be most interesting is seeing, obviously it's our fight for survival, right? Right now it's not just who's going to take the throne, but to still see the characters as they develop in their interpersonal relationships. Because we also have Cersei was on board, but not really. So we'll see, who's going to die, who's going to fall. But I just thought it was interesting the way it was left off. Here we're all trying to have this alliance together, but we still have, Cersei who doesn't really want to have an alliance. She's, still caught up in her own mental issues.
Still playing the game. Linda, do you have any scenes or moments from Season 7, reunions or battle scenes or anything that stand out to
Oh,
you?
I love all the reunions. But I've been so frustrated because I wanted Jon Snow to know his real birth. And there in the movie, Bran says to Samwell, we have to tell him. And I tell him, hurry up.
You're waiting for that moment?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But the reveals that we got last season, even though most of us knew, the reveals that we got with Sam copying the Maester's diary and then Bran flashing back to the wedding, that was a
So we
huge
knew
deal.
it was coming. So
Yeah.
it was there.
Yeah. So, Shane, what it's not a dragon landing on a roof. We're under construction. We're fine.
We should point the camera to what's happening outdoors. Got a massive crane building our roof right now.
It's just going to be a little you can anticipate that happening through this whole season's worth of episode recaps, probably.
So the Sansa and Arya was a big one once they finally killed Peter and had their moment on at Winterfell. But also rewatching, I've been really interested in Melisandre and just her character arc, because she was responsible for bringing together Jon and Dany, and I don't think that really cemented in my mind the first time really watching this, because so many other big things were happening,
right?
And just watching that dialogue and her interacting with these characters, and she's gone now, so she's the one character that I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with her.
Yeah.
So that kind of really stood out to me.
And she did say in her conversation with Varys before she left, that she'd done her job and she brought fire and ice together. So that was really
Exactly.
So that's a little ominous.
And I was rewatching the first interaction scene she had with Arya, and people were saying that potentially a theory is that Arya could come back and kill her, because she is on her list now.
She is, She took Gendry.
Yeah.
And Gendry doesn't really have fond memories of his time with Melisandre either.
No,
So one of my favorite scenes is actually the first scene of the whole season, which will get us into we'll talk about each episode a little bit, because there are only 7 of them. We can do this in the time that we have allotted. One of the scenes that stands out to me the most is the North Remember scene. That was the very first scene of the first episode, where Arya's wearing Walder Frey's face, and she gathers all the male Freys, and she gives them all wine, and she toasts to their bravery at the Red Wedding, killing women and unborn children, and they all drink the wine and die. And she turns to the remaining one of Walder's young wives and turns to him and says, "The North remembers winter came for House Frey." And it was just kind of a really chilling way to open the season.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And that was the one time they actually had a scene before the credits came.
Yeah, because they don't do that traditionally. And it was really impactful too, because it was first of all, she wiped out an entire house. And and then the credits come, and yeah, we just don't do that in Game of Thrones.
When did she feed? Was it Walter Frey? She fed his son.
sons.
Yeah.
When did she do that?
So it was season 6, and it was like the last episode of season 6.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you imagine?
So the Frey pies actually do come up again. So Frey pies are actually like, oh yeah, by the way, spoilers if you haven't watched season 7, and there'll be some book spoilers too, but like Frey pies are something that actually happen in the books too.
It's a Sweeney Todd moment.
Yeah, it's a little Sweeney Todd moment. So after Arya takes out all the Freys, we one of the next scenes is that we go to Winterfell and get to see Jon as king for one of the first times, and he's talking about what they need to do to defend the North, training the women and the children, because everybody's going to need to pick up a spear or a sword or a knife or whatever. And we got awesome Lyanna Mormont just continuing to be awesome. I don't plan on knitting by the fire while the dead come for me. He sends the wildlings to defend Eastwatch, so the wildlings are now officially kind of men of the Night's Watch. And then when they start talking about what to do with the Umbers and the Karstarks castles, that's when Jon and Sansa kind of butt heads a little bit, because Sansa wants to seize the properties and give them to people who are loyal, and Jon wants to try to encourage these noble houses to be loyal to the Starks again, and you see a little bit of friction. And they have a little talk after about her undermining him in front of people, and they're both good rulers. I don't think either one of them was totally right or totally wrong on what they were going to do. There was just like different approaches, and they talk about Cersei and how Sansa kind of learned from her. But I thought, looking back, rewatching the season, Sansa looked very Catelyn Stark to me in that season. The way she wore her hair, the colors she was wearing. She looked
ready.
Yeah, she looked very of the North last season. But we still have that little shadow of Littlefinger over them trying to divide, Then we cut back to King's Landing, and Cersei's on her war map, which is wonderful. And Cersei and Jaime don't really seem to be in alignment with what to, he says, what are we fighting for? We only have control of 3 kingdoms at the most. We don't have any heirs. What are we really doing this for? And Cersei's just in it to win it.
And she still is, I think.
Yeah.
She doesn't see the real threat, and it's where Jaime and Cersei are probably gonna. I mean, we already know that he left.
Yeah.
But is he gonna come back and kill her? I mean, that's what I want to see.
Also, is she pregnant?
All right, there's a lot of stuff to speculate about where Cersei's involved. But we do see, we do meet Euron Greyjoy too for the first time in this episode. And I had these are the notes that I took while I was doing my rewatch 2 years ago before our talks. And I wrote that he was kind of a Jack Sparrow wannabe. But he was like taunting Jaime about having like 2 good hands and whatnot. So we go to the Citadel, and Sam, we remember that horrible montage where he was like emptying out so that was one of the more disgusting in a show filled with like murder and incest, and like the most disgusting scene was like one of the toilet scenes. But Sam is really frustrated because he's doing this menial task that he knows he's sent there for knowledge to save the world. And there's really, he's talking to the Archmaester, and there's a lot of foreshadowing about the wall coming down in this scene, because the wall will hold, and that's probably when we all should have known that the wall was going to come down. Yeah, it was going to come down. So Arya meets up with some Lannister soldiers and has really kind of her coming to humanity moment. Because we really thought she was going to kill all of them. Yeah, Ed Sheeran. Bad. It was such a weird cameo. I hope they don't do anything like that.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to see anybody out of place. Don't put.
But I actually liked
Stupid
that
line.
scene though.
Yeah.
The scene was really, I think the scene was part of Arya's journey back to being human again. She starts, and it was humorous.
It's the one time she
when
really
they all
laughed.
laughed when she said
Yeah.
she was going to go kill the queen.
Right.
And it was so, it really was funny.
It was funny, and they did. The one good thing about having Ed Sheeran there is that he did sing the one of the songs from the book, which is about
Who wants to
hand-to-hand.
listen to him sing?
But he was saying about Tyrion's being the hand, and hands of gold are often cold, but a woman's hands are warm. He was, it's about a song about Tyrion and Shay. Yeah, a little, In the episode, we see Sandor, Theros, the Brotherhood without borders. They're headed towards the wall. Sandor looks into the fire and sees things. And then we go back to the Citadel, and Sam discovers about all the dragon glass hidden on Dragonstone. In the very end of the episode, is Dany is finally in Westeros after 21 years, thousands of pages, and 60 episodes. Daenerys Targaryen, first of her name, finally arrives in Westeros.
But we've been waiting for a lot of things to happen.
We have, yeah. So that was episode 1. And episode 2 opens with Varys trying to convince Dany that he's her loyal servant, which maybe.
That was a great scene.
That was a great scene.
Because that was the first time I really listened to him and trusted what he was saying. It seemed pretty genuine.
Yeah.
And like him saying that he was the voice of the people, and the reason why he's turning on everyone is because he realizes that these rulers are bad. And I thought that was really interesting because it makes sense.
Yeah, and it was a good scene for her too, because then she was inclined to execute him, and then she said, well, if I am ever doing something that is not in the best will of the people, you're going to let me know. And if you ever betray me, I am going to burn you alive. But it was, she was showing mercy. She was giving him a chance at redemption after he had sent assassins after her, which, she had killed people previously for that, and exiled Jorah for that, and
Jorah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's when we see Melisandre.
Jorah.
Yeah. Well, Jorah's in the Citadel now in this episode, though.
Except not anymore.
Yeah, he's in the Citadel in this episode, getting his, basically the Maesters are giving up on him, and they're like, he's just gonna die. But Sam has
Another one of the more disgusting.
it was really
It
gross,
was
and it
awful.
segued to a pie.
I recently rewatched that, and I really think the scene is really long,
Maybe it feels really
it
long.
It does
really
feel
long,
long.
and it's funny. It's when if I were advising a film editor, I would have said, we get the idea.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't watch it. I was going.
And it did advance. It really did advance the story.
Yeah,
I
and
just needed to know that.
Right, and it was in this episode, and in one of my notes when I wrote after from watching that scene was Sam really could have used some Boltons because he's basically flaying Jorah alive.
Ramsay missed his comment.
Ramsay should have been at the Citadel curing people from Grayscale this whole time. So we did see Cersei trying to gain some allies in the form of the Tarleys in this episode. She was being very xenophobic, claiming that the Dothraki were going to come and rape all their women, which to be fair to Cersei was kind of a fair assumption on her part.
Yeah.
The Dothraki do have a history.
Like the Vikings,
Conquering nations are going to conquer, right?
Yeah. Stealing their women.
Yeah, and that what's his name? Qyburn brings her into the dungeon and shows her the skull of Balerion the Black-Tread, the dragon who forged the 7 kingdoms with his fire, and they put a spear through it because they're planning on attacking our friend Rogan. So that was so they have a strategy for the dragons. Oh, one of my other notes in here that was kind of funny was that Cersei's hair is the "I would like to speak to your manager" cut. Which it looks like it's grown out a little bit for the next season, so that's good.
She looks good no matter what.
Keeping it short.
Yeah. Then the women of Westeros who are on Dany's side, Ilaria Sand, she wants her revenge. So does Olenna Tyrell. Yara wants her throne. They're getting kind of frustrated with Dany's lack of action. To us, she just arrived in Dragonstone, but apparently, time passes differently on the show, and they want her to basically fly to King's Landing and just burn it down. The ladies do end up reluctantly agreeing with Tyrion's plan, even though they don't really think taking Casterly Rock is the blow that they want to deal. And Alina keeps Dany behind after everybody leaves and gives the
Yeah.
great line, "You are a dragon, be a dragon." We also got our first Grey Worm and Miss Sandy love scene in this episode, which was different from most Game of Thrones sex scenes in that it was actually kind of romantic
Yes.
and soft. And
But boring.
but boring. well, compared to what we're used to, right?
It raises questions.
Yeah.
Questions are the only things that are raised. Sorry.
So,
Edit that out.
you don't edit, you get like the realness. So the scene with Sam and Jorah that segues to Arya eating a pie is her meeting up again with Hot Pie, which was a great moment.
We liked hot
Yeah.
pie, as long as he's not making fried pies, then we're.
Yeah, and also in this episode is when she meets up with Nymeria. So she, those being called back, and she finds out that Jon took Winterfell, so she knows she's gonna head home. So this episode is really like Arya returning to being no one to Arya Stark of Winterfell. Also, Jon decides to go to Dragonstone and he leaves Sansa in charge. We get that great scene of Jon with Littlefinger in the crypts, where he threatens Littlefinger, and if you touch my sister, I'll kill you.
Very Ned Starky.
Yeah. And of course, the end of the episode is the Greyjoy fleet attacking the Sand Snakes and Yara Greyjoy. I think it was one of our only water battle scenes since Battle of the Blackwater.
It was so well done.
It was really well done.
Really impressive.
There's a lot of like wrapping up loose ends in this season too, and I think the Sand Snakes were loose ends, and they effectively put an end to that.
They were really annoying.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
they
they were not one of the best. Although, in the next episode, the Queen's Justice, you do feel a little bit of sadness for Ilaria and her daughter.
Yeah, it's messed up, but seriously, but it was messed up what they did.
Absolutely,
True.
Melisandre.
Yeah.
I mean, not Melisandre. Her daughter Marcella. She was an innocent girl.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly.
But in the beginning of the Queen's Justice, we get the meeting with Dany and Jon basically right away. Jon arrives on the shores of Dragonstone, and they make him give up his weapons, and they take his boat. It's all very foreboding.
Also a question about time.
Yeah, another question about this
Time.
whole
The
season.
show.
And
I think the entire season 7.
Yeah.
He went from the very north to the very south.
Yeah.
by ship.
yeah, and I mean, I think everything in here is really sped up, but it also doesn't make sense that like she wouldn't have found out about the Greyjoy attack, and she wouldn't have, like that in that amount of time would have passed. I mean, I guess Davos is just such a skilled sailor that we're supposed to believe. So, seeing Jon and Tyrion, all these great reunions that happen this season, Jon and Tyrion meet up again. Tyrion immediately is like, oh, it's the bastard of Winterfell, and Jon's like, oh, it's the dwarf of Casterly Hall. That little exchange. Dany has the dragons flying around, and the Dothraki are on the beach. It's all like a very big show of force. They do have a little chat about Sansa, about her being smarter than she lets on, and she's starting to let on, and Tyrion assures Jon that the marriage was never consummated, and he obviously still has fond feelings for Sansa though, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like
he's like a protector kind of.
I'm kind of shipping Tyrion and Sansa for next season though. I hope those dark kids fix it.
I thought Tyrion just wanted to take.
Yeah, he's kind of like a brotherly role.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than sipping Sansa and Sandor, which is some people who read the books do, and I do not get that. So, yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting because part of Tyrion's objection when Tywin tells him he has to marry her is that she's just a child, and what was she supposed to be, 13 or 14?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
So he clearly, that was part of his, he just wasn't going to take advantage of a person he saw as a child. And she is not a child now.
No, she's
So,
because that was like 6 seasons ago.
Yeah,
6 or 7 seasons ago.
So she's very different.
Yeah. So we do get that great conversation between Mal and Varys that we referenced earlier before she leaves to go across the narrow sea to do, we have no idea, but we're very anxious to find out. And then John is finally introduced to Danny, and Missandei goes through all the titles, Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, Stormborn, First of her name, Queen of the whatever, and then Davos, this is Jon Snow.
Well, it's pretty clear that John isn't impressed.
No, he's not.
He's not.
This is where I stopped liking Danny. Like, I mean, she's never been my favorite, but I didn't like her in this season at
Well,
all.
she was very. I have a lot of my notes here about how she demanded people like bend the knee,
Right,
and her only claim was I'm a Targaryen,
Right.
and there was
no.
no.
I mean, it was clearly her strategy.
Yeah.
She was putting it out, but I think that she gets annoyed pretty quickly because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, who is this guy? You know.
Yeah.
Why is
You know, it's
You're
really
his
like
aunt.
Missandei and Grey Worm that really speak to her character throughout this all, which I
Yeah.
thought was really interesting, because she was not helping her case.
Yeah,
No.
But the people that follow her and
Right.
are
Yeah.
loyal to her were really able to stand up for her,
Right.
which I liked.
I like that too. Yeah. And she did show her true self and her actions later on when she does fly to the north. But yeah, in this episode and the episode that follows, she is very much like, I'm the queen because I say so, and you should kneel. You know, it's kind of, it is kind of a turn off.
Huge.
So they don't get along. He refuses to bend the knee. He tries to warn her about the White Walkers, which of course makes him just sound completely
Crazy.
nuts. Yeah, even though she, hatched dragons and walks through fire, she's like, ice zombies is a bridge too far. I can't. And Davos does that. He took a knife in the heart for his people, like giving
Came
away.
back from
Yeah.
the dead.
Yeah. But they decide to keep Jon and Davos there. Euron is welcomed in King's Landing like a hero, and he's dragging Illyria and her daughter through the streets. He presents Illyria as a gift to Cersei, which she kind of taunts, promises, oh yeah, we'll get married, sure, when the war is over. And he's taunting Jaime. It's gonna be kind of interesting to see if Euron and Jaime meet up again later on. So the Queen's justice is harsh but deserved, because she basically is doing the same thing that was done to her. So at least it wasn't something like above and beyond.
Oh, that was something that that was her children, that was her daughter, that
Right.
was cold-blooded murdered,
Yeah.
so I get it.
Yeah.
I might do the same.
Cersei does say mothers aren't supposed to have favorites, but we're only human, and it kind of made me think that Marcella must have been her favorite.
It's her
Because
daughter.
she did have she knew Joffrey was a monster, but all her hopes for power, lay in her sons. I think she thought Tommen was weak, but she
He
did.
also kind of betrayed her
He
in
did.
a way.
He did.
So
Yeah. But she did have nothing but really wonderful things to say about Marcella.
She was sweet.
She was a sweet girl. So Jamie and Cersei kind of reconnect a little bit in this episode, which is only important later on because she claims to be pregnant later on in the season. The Iron Bank of Bravos comes calling, and they want what's owed to them, and this is when they decide they're going to take Hightower and the Tyrells. Jon and Tyrion have a discussion where Tyrion tries to bring Jon back to Dany to give her another chance, trying to be very diplomatic, claims that she protects people from monsters, give her one more try. Dany and Jon do have a one-on-one where they're on the bridge watching the dragons, and it's really where you see the first glimpse of chemistry between the aunt and her nephew.
There's chemistry between the dragon and Jon.
Yeah.
Which is more important.
Yeah, that is more important. And we see Sansa being very competent in the north. She's running things really well. She's getting things prepared. And then Bran comes home, and he's very much changed.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very different. Then we have that incredibly creepy scene under the rearwood tree where he tells her about her wedding night, and it's just awful. It's just
I
awful.
can't handle him.
Yeah. And then we go to the Citadel, and he's really creepy. We go back to the Citadel, and Jorah is completely cured, and he's set free. He's able to go back to Dany, and Sam is called into the principal's office and tasked with the chore of translating all these scrolls or transcribing all these scrolls, and that will end up being important later on because of what he learns.
The wedding license,
Yeah.
marriage license,
Should always read those books.
You should always read those
You
books.
should always read the books. The history is important. We have a whole room dedicated to history. So then this is the episode 2 where they take Casterly Rock, and this was a great little cinematic thing where they do the worst case scenario and then they or how they plan to do it, and then they go in and nobody's there, and there's nobody there because they're marching to High Garden, and they take High Garden with no problems at all. Jamie goes to see Olenna. They have the Queen of Thorns was so good through the whole series. Olenna was so great, and her last scene is one of her best
it
scenes
really was.
Yeah.
when she's.
I mean, is the title referring to her?
I think
I think it is.
I think it is. I think it's a title is a fake out because you think
Yeah.
they're referring to Cersei, and what they're really referring to is Olenna, the Queen of Thorns,
Yeah.
because she killed
Best.
Joffrey.
Yeah.
and she admits it with her dying breath.
Best.
I think it's seasons for her to finally say it.
It's great.
Yeah.
It was really good. But meanwhile, Dany's 2 major allies have been completely wiped out, no trouble at all, and Dany is losing. And the next episode is the spoils of war.
Yeah.
So Bronn is extremely unhappy. He was promised a castle. He was
Still
promised a
doesn't
bag
have
of
it.
gold. None of the things, the Lannisters always pay their debts. It doesn't say how long it takes the Lannisters to pay their debts. Tyrion made a lot of promises to this guy. Cersei made a lot of promises to this guy. I think Tywin made some promises to this
Yeah.
guy.
At this point, we know that the Lannisters always pay their debts. Might have been like tongue in cheek, kind of.
I think that meant it was more like a Reigns of Castamere or like a
Yeah.
Red
Yeah.
Wedding kind of
Right.
paying of debts. And so again, like Jaime's telling him, oh, you'll get your prize at the end of the war. Cersei's looking into hiring the Golden Company, which doesn't come into fruition this season, but we'll see it next season. When we go to Winterfell, Littlefinger gives Bran the dagger that was the dagger the assassin used in the first season to try to kill Bran. This was a very interesting little scene because Littlefinger, who's always trying to play everybody, can't play Bran because Bran can see everything. And so that's when Bran, creepy, looks up to him and says, "Chaos is a ladder," one of Littlefinger's most famous lines.
Yes.
Which is probably still my favorite line from the whole series.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was actually one of the only times in the whole show that I can think of that Littlefinger was really speechless. Littlefinger always had a
Yeah,
comeback,
something
was
like that,
always,
Yeah.
and it's great. He has this look on his face that is the only time.
Yeah.
Well, until the last episode.
He was
Yeah.
my favorite character in the first season. So weird. That's what I love about the show is how they can make you like somebody and then all of a sudden you just don't. You're like,
Yeah, or you don't like somebody and all of a sudden you like them.
Yeah.
I really like them and they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Dead Star.
Yeah. So Mira leaves. We don't know if we're going to see Mira again. I would assume we might see Mira again in season 8. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe when they're all fleeing Winterfell, because we're assuming they're going to lose Battle of Winterfell.
She's kind of a throwaway character.
She is maybe a throwaway character, although she did so much for Bran.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But really didn't. Some of that beyond the wall stuff they did, like Benjen doesn't
Yeah.
really get developed. He shows up and saves the day a couple times, and
Yeah,
that's all.
it.
goes
it
away.
is, yeah.
Yeah. But more importantly, Arya is home, and there's a wonderful scene of her walking up and looking around Winterfell, and then there's she tricks the guards, goes to the crypts, and we get the reunion of Arya and Sansa.
But then again, Arya I loved, and then all of a sudden I don't like Arya during this part. But we understand.
Yeah. They were psyching us
Her
out.
experience was just so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you said, she's becoming a human again and having that experience. It's not going to be smooth.
No, but there was good wordplay between the sisters, or good interplay between them. Where do I have to call you Lady Stark? And Sansa's like, yes. And now she brings Arya to Bran, and Bran gives Arya the dagger that Littlefinger gave him. And I wondered, in my rewatch, after he hands her the dagger and then everything goes off camera, I wondered if that was the plan where they, or the time when the 3 of them talked about Littlefinger.
Yeah.
And that's when they learned everything, and they were starting to plan the 3 of them together.
Yeah, because I always wondered, we always were left like, because we thought that Arya and Sansa were, Arya was gonna kill Sansa, it seemed like at one point, and then all of a sudden they're like in cahoots with each other to go after Littlefinger, but like, that's what kind of like left me like, where did that happen? So,
Yeah. Well, I thought that scene was kind of abrupt. He's like, here's the dagger, and then they just kind of end it, and then the three of them are walking there, and I'm like, well, that's the last time we really see the three of them together, where the three of them must have had discussions off camera about this. So I wondered if the handing of the dagger was, this is what's up.
Because there's no way Bran could keep that to himself.
No way.
Yeah,
And
no
not
way.
tell his sisters. Like, that would be messed up.
Right.
Right. And and he told Sansa things, because when she was sentencing in the final episode, when she was sentenced, she said, you betrayed our father.
Yeah.
She couldn't have known that unless Bran
Without-
told.
yeah.
Right.
So there must have been a discussion at some point. So we have Brian at Winterfell too, who has, even though it's like the middle episode, we haven't really had much Brian time, and we need as much Brian time as we can get until she's not on screen anymore, basically. I did like the scene between Missandei and Dany when they were going down to the caves and they were gossiping about Missandei's love life. I thought that was cute. And then Dany goes into the cave with Jon, and they see the Children of the Forest cave paintings and all the dragon glass.
The music.
Yeah.
So great.
I wrote here romantic tones, romantic overtones. Dany does try to convince Jon to bend the knee again, but then they're interrupted. And the good news is we took that Casterly Rock. Bad news is you're totally losing the war. Then there's we go back to Winterfell, and there's a great scene of Brienne and Pod training, and then Arya breaks it up to get trained by herself, and that was
really, really.
And I didn't get the impression that Brian was going easy on her. When I was rewatching this,
No.
I was like, no, she was trying. Yeah.
Now, I think she started out a little tentatively,
Yeah.
but it's clear that it turns into a
Multiple.
real fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we go back to Dragonstone, and Jon and Davos are having a very serious conversation where Davos is trying to tease Jon about how Dany is pretty, and Jon is like, I've seen the Night King. There's no time to think of girls or whatever, but he's clearly having thoughts. But then
About his aunt.
about his aunt. Then Theon comes to Dragonstone, which was I really thought that Jon was going to beat him up, and then
At least.
As he should have.
yeah, well, he said that the only reason he didn't is because of what he did for Sansa.
Well, and also because he's just that pathetic.
Yeah, he is kind of Theon is kind of pathetic. I was like, what do you?
I don't think there's a more pathetic character on the entire show.
No, he's the most pathetic character. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've wondered, for a while, why. So there have been multiple episodes where it seems like, okay, Theon's gonna die now. Now he's gonna die. So I've wondered why they've kept him alive, which makes me think there must be something
Redeeming.
vital
Yeah.
that he does. So
I'm sure he
Yeah.
has something that he's
I
gonna
hope
do.
so. I mean, I hope he goes out in a blaze of glory.
I
or has
don't.
some major role. Well, just because
Let's not forget.
No,
I
he
think
did
it's
horrible
just-
things.
I'm
But-
not actually. It's just because I'm annoyed they've kept him. It's just my own satisfaction. Okay,
That's the
there's a
reason why.
reason. Yeah, that's all.
There
It's
was
not,
a-
not because I feel like he has any. Yeah.
So we go back to the loot train that's leaving Highgarden. And everybody's feeling very confident about their victory, their success. They're walking back to King's Landing, and all of a sudden they hear the thundering of horse hooves, and the Dothraki are
They
arriving.
didn't really show you the logistics of how that. I mean,
Mm.
she flew her dragon, and that was fine. But how they got all those Dothraki and horses to Highgarden and so fast?
Well, yeah, well the ship too. Well, I think Dragonstone. If we had our fold up map of Westeros right now, Dragonstone's not that
Right.
far.
But it's an
But
island.
it is an island, so they did have to take a ship.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's okay.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, it's great. It's
That's
great.
why I can't understand why Cersei's hair hasn't grown.
Yeah.
At this point, she just
She's
needs to
just
cut
a
it.
bob.
She likes the short
Yeah,
hair.
she's
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of a pixie. Yeah.
So the thundering of Dothraki hooves, and at first they're like, maybe we could take them. We don't have to worry about this. And then there's the music gets more ominous, and all of a sudden they're like, what's that on the horizon? And then Drogon screams, and we have our first dragon battle in Westeros. Very exciting, because we've heard so much about how the Seven Kingdoms were forged with dragon fire, how the Targaryens used the dragons to kind of subdue their subjects and take over new lands for centuries.
You can't beat a dragon.
You can't beat a dragon. There was a lot of foreshadowing for this first fight. And, the dragon dominated. Yeah, it was an incredibly effective machine of war. They didn't stand a chance. And Tyrion's there to witness the whole battle. He does kind of look upset, which I remember thinking at the time when I watched that, like, he burned so many people alive in season 2 with all that wildfire.
Yeah.
But he was upset about that too.
He was upset about that too.
Tyrion has a soul.
Yeah. So they do end up being able to hit Drogon with the scorpion. We did, if you watched our videos 2 years ago, we did put a little band-aid on our buddy Drogon to honor his wound. And
it didn't kill him.
it did not kill him. But Jaime sees an opportunity with Drogon on the ground to try to take out Dany, which would end the war with one blow, and Drogon goes to light him on fire, and Bronn pushes him into the water. And we don't really get like a lot of like cliffhangers, like kind of late night TV cliffhangers on Game of Thrones, like, but that was one of our few cliffhangers, because it was, will Jaime live or die? Will he see with all the armor on him? So
That wasn't a fitting end.
it wasn't a fitting end, but and it does start right back with Jaime. The next episode, Eastwatch, the 5th one, Jaime and Bronn getting out of the water, and Jaime's all mad at him. You could have killed me. Like, meanwhile, like the dragon fire would have killed you too. There were no good ways. Tyrion is walking through the ashes, and everybody's assembled in front of Dany. Drogon is on the rock, looking all majestic, and she says, to everybody, bend the knee or die. And it is kind of a reasonable choice for their society, but it still is kind of like, Then the funny scene in this is the Lannisters, like, they hesitate, they don't want to bend the knee, but then Drogon gets up and roars and they all drop, except for the Tarlys.
Right, but this is why I didn't stop liking Dany too, because now she's like forcing, all these people. I mean, I guess these were the enemy, so sure, I understand, but like, she was always like, I want people to want to follow me, but.
Yeah. And, then of course she puts Randall and Dickon to death via dragonfire. Sam's family, because they were the only ones who refused to bend the knee. They refused to take the black.
Yeah.
And then we see Jaime telling Cersei the bad news. She asks him, how many men did we lose? Jaime says, I don't know, but the answer is all of them. The answer is all of them. And Cersei still doesn't want to believe that Olenna killed Joffrey. She wants to believe that Tyrion killed him. Then Dany flies Drogon back to Dragonstone, and Jon is not intimidated by Drogon. He kind of like pets him on the nose a little bit.
No, that's a great scene.
Yeah.
Because she's clearly, it's just like when she sat on that big throne.
Right.
She's clearly gonna intimidate, he's standing there, let's intimidate him, and he's just like,
Yeah.
Kitten! Yeah.
It's Jon is also.
yeah.
Well, she's like completely memorized by this though. She's completely taken off guard. She's really fascinated by this interaction. Then Jorah returns, and they have like a very touching reunion
I
scene.
love
That was like the first time this season that she really showed her human side.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah, all her like walls kind of came down. Sam does try to stand up to the Maesters, because they get a raven from Bran telling them that the Night King's coming, and the Maesters are like, this little crippled boy has no idea what they're talking about, and Sam's like, no, you need to listen to him. They don't want to believe Sam. Then they back on Dragonstone, they come up with the plan. I said the capture a zombie to show Cersei plot is very Ocean's 11. So that was what I feel like about it 2 years ago.
This plot still bothers me. I mean, it's like, okay, the CGI people didn't get enough work or something. They could
Make more die rolls.
Take someone who's dying, a wildling, put them on the other side of the wall, wait 12 hours, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like there's so many ways to get, and they're just like, no, we're gonna march on. I mean,
There was,
whatever.
yeah, I
They
mean,
needed it for the show.
Yes,
they needed
yes,
the big
I mean,
battle.
for
They
all the
needed Danny to
things,
stand
yeah.
out.
they needed the dragon for the other
Yeah.
side. They needed the
Yes,
Syrian
They
ball.
needed Danny to prove herself.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's all this stuff,
Yeah.
but I still, I'm very annoyed.
No, it was annoying on the rewatch too. It was like, this is not, like, I understand they want Cersei, but this is just, so we go back to Winterfell and there's all the tension between Sansa and Arya. You know, Arya's a little annoyed that Sansa's in mother and father's chambers, and it appears as though Littlefinger is playing a game of chess with them. Bronn arranges a meeting with Tyrion and Jaime, and Davos goes and collects Gendry, so Gendry's back in the game. And then Cersei tells Jaime that she's pregnant.
Which is a big question.
Which is a big question
Major
mark.
question.
Major question mark. She's also very upset that he met with Tyrion. You know, she considers it a betrayal, tells him
Right.
never to do it again.
But she didn't stop it.
She didn't stop it. She let it happen because she knew about it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
She
So that's the implication,
Yeah.
that she could have.
Yeah. So back at the Citadel, Sam is annoyed and talking a lot, and Gilly's reading the scrolls that he's supposed to be transcribed, and we find out that Rhaegar annulled his marriage to Ilya and married someone else in a secret ceremony. So we find out then that Jon is actually legitimate, not born out of wedlock, so he could actually be the heir to the Iron Throne. Then Sam robs the Citadel in the middle of the night and leaves. And Arya finds the scroll that Sansa was forced to write in the first season by Cersei. So then we go beyond the wall. So this was an 81-minute episode. And so we
Disapproving.
I've already had mine.
Yeah.
It
So
had some great moments.
Yeah.
You know, but
it did. I mean, well, the great moments really were the interaction between like Tormund and Gendry and Jorah and
Right.
Jon, like
Yeah.
as they're marching very Lord of the Rings
Yes.
style on this
Yes.
quest.
Yes.
Yep, and we have Tormund being really cute about Rhaene. I want to make babies with her. Big monsters that'll conquer the world. We go, you know, Tyrion and Dany talking about Jon. He's too little for me, which was kind of awkward to say to Tyrion. And Tyrion kind of lectures her about using fear as a source of gaining power.
Yep.
Yeah, they introduced the theory of democracy, but most of the action happens beyond the wall. We get our first undead polar bear, which I didn't know was a thing until that episode. We also learned that if the whites will die if you kill the walker that raised them, which is probably going to be important in the future. You know, the heroes get stranded in the middle of the rock on the frozen pond, and Gendry runs to go send a raven to tell Dany, and of course Dany arrives in the nick of time because Sandor Clegane is
So
throwing rocks.
fast, like, Get her into the back.
Yeah.
They just send a raven.
Yeah. Everybody's flying very quickly.
And like they were stranded on this rock for what, 12 hours maybe?
Maybe. And meanwhile, what's the matter with Sandor? He's just like, I'm bored, so I'm gonna start throwing
Right.
rocks.
And that's when they discover, oh,
Yeah.
we can walk across
Hey,
this.
we can walk across this. But the scene of Drogon swooping in to save the day Viserys up in the sky. Of course, it was very sad when Viserys got hit. Viserys got hit.
And
Yeah.
you see his blue eyes.
Yeah, and then they pull him out. I remember like screaming at the TV, like, you just leave him alone.
They wanted their ice dragon.
They did want their ice dragon. So, and then, Dany and Jon on the ship, going back, lots of chemistry. So, The Dragon and the Wolf, the final episode, the 7th season. They have their kind of convocation where they're gonna show Cersei the white. Dany arrives on Drogon. Her again, show of power, show of force, and shows up late. But overplayed her hand because later Cersei's like, she only had 2 dragons, so something happened.
She should have just brought
She
her
should,
around.
she should have not. Everybody is like suitably scared of this zombie except for Cersei. She's
My girl.
Yeah, she's like, if they even make it this far. But this is also where we have a ton more reunions. We got Jaime and Brienne, the Hound in the Mountain, Euron with Theon. There's a lot of people coming back together. But I think the best part, for me at least, of the finale was Littlefinger's execution.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it was a total fake out.
Yeah.
We thought that she was sentencing Arya and that she was sentencing Littlefinger. And they laid all his stuff bare. Every horrible thing he'd done since season 1. Every horrible thing he'd done since season 1.
Triggered the whole thing.
He triggered that, yeah.
This whole
This is
mess
coming
came
since
about.
episode 1.
Yeah.
But he was great.
Yeah, and the great lines, I loved your mother, and yet you betrayed her. I loved you, and yet you betrayed me. And then they just slice his throat. So that's great.
Very satisfying.
It's very satisfying. And, Cersei and Jaime have their disagreement. Jaime's riding away, and as he's riding away, it's starting to snow in King's Landing, so winter has in fact come. And then we have the 2 scenes kind of laid on top of each other of Sam and Bran sharing information about what they know about Jon, with Jon and Dany coming together in the boat. So we get he's the heir to the Iron Throne and the Targaryen alliance forming. And we finally get at the end of the episode that the pack survives, the Starks are united. And then the wall comes down.
Oh. Then the wall came down.
It just came down 2 weeks.
It came down so. I remember you saying that almost 2 years ago.
So we are just about out of time. But does anybody have any quick theories they want to give for what we're going to see on Sunday night? First episode.
Oh, I have
First
no
episode,
idea.
yeah.
I've got the chills thinking about it.
It'll be warming up to the real action,
Yeah.
so there might not be anything.
We'll get a lot of
I think
reunions.
there has to be something big.
There's going to be a lot of bring the
first
characters.
episode to
Yeah.
the final season.
And we've waited-
They're gonna start it with something now.
We waited 2 years, so
Yeah,
there's
there's
going to
something
be.
chilly and creepy, and kind of like how they started last season with Arya and doing that.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have predicted that from last season.
Yeah, no.
So I don't know.
I don't know.
The thing that is interesting is what did they do with Peter Baelish's body? Is
Oh, well,
he gonna
I'm
come
sure.
back?
I
I'm
would
sure
assume
they
that
burned
I
it.
would assume that Arya
Did
knows
Arya
his
take his
face.
face?
Yes.
Is she gonna do the same thing?
I just assumed that's why they executed him that way.
Right, yeah.
So she can take his face
She'll
and
take
go
his
to
face
King's Landing
and
and
kill
kill
someone.
Cersei.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh God!
Absolutely.
Stop!
She's gonna do the same thing she did to the Frey.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
We need to do a whole other episode just of this.
Oh no, it's
Arya
I
has
didn't even think twice about that. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, she's killing him that way, so yeah, she can be Peter Baelish.
But then there were people saying that because he had that interaction with some random person and he paid her off. So people are thinking that he had someone take his place. And it isn't actually him that was killed.
I don't know.
But that doesn't really make sense to me
No.
because for them to have gotten his face, he would have had to
Yeah,
die.
they don't-
I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like as soon as he was going to be executed, the person would have been like, just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, so there-
Yeah.
a lot of holes with that one. But
All right, well, we'll see you guys again on, it'll be Tuesday morning at, is it
8:30.
8:30? 8:30 on, hopefully on Facebook Live to go over what happens on episode 1. We're all very excited
Very
here.
excited.
So
stay
We
tuned.
could be very upset.
We could be very upset.
We
We
could
could be
Oh, I
crying.
have the chills already.
Yeah. But if you can comment on this video and we'll get back to you and we'll have we can all share in our hype and our fear and our anxiety together.